this is Nick Dawson, the editor-in-chief of Talkhouse Film, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Film podcast. It's a good sign when you've been working with someone all day for months and you still want to talk with them for a podcast. Michael Showalter's first film as a director in more than a decade, Hello, My Name is Doris, is out now. And to mark the release of this funny, sweet, and unconventional romantic comedy drama starring Sally Field, he participated in a conversation with a creative peer for Talkhouse Film. The person in question? Stand-up comedian and Silicon Valley star Kumail Nanjiani, who not only has a supporting role in Doris, but is also the writer and star of Showalter's next movie as director, The Big Sick, hence why they've been spending so much time together recently. Nanjiani is a relatively new collaborator for Showalter. He certainly doesn't go nearly as far back with him as, say, Showalter's stellar cohorts David Wayne or Michael Ian Black, but the two still have their history. So the pair talk here not only about Showalter's new movie and its tonal shift from his previous work, but also their first project together, the short-lived Comedy Central show Michael and Michael Have Issues, and how it marked a turning point in both their careers. Also discussed here, Showalter's tremendous love of money, the practical joke that Michael and Michael writer-performer Jesse Klein is still mad about, how Kumail's wife feels about his fights with Showalter, Doris's standing with a site called, I think, Spoiled Tomatoes, and much more.
Hey, this is Kumail Nanjiani, Michael Showalter. Hi.
Hi, Kumail Nanjiani.
How's it going?
Great.
First of all, this is slightly awkward because we've been hanging out all day, every day. And then
For the last 5 months.
Yeah, and then we have to come into a room and then have a conversation.
Yeah.
Even though we've been talking nonstop for 5 months.
Yes.
We had to stop talking about something that we're working on to come talk about something
that we were working on before.
That we were working on.
We were talking about something that we're working on now.
Yes.
To talk about something that we were working on before.
Well, we first met I don't know, we probably met in the New York comedy scene. You and Eugene Merman used to do a show together at Union Hall called Tearing the Veil of Maya.
Right, but I think we met even before that.
We probably met at Sweet.
I think we met at Invite Them Up.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember you were the hot new comedian in town. Yeah.
No.
You were the fresh piece of comedy meat that everybody was talking about.
Is that real?
It's true, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like, who's this new guy? Who's this new guy? Yeah, he's really funny. I remember Eugene talking about you actually and saying there's this this new guy in town, Kumail. He's really, really funny.
Well, Eugene Merman, who's a hilarious stand-up comedian, was sort of and still is the king of the New York alt comedy scene. He was when I first moved there, Pete Holmes and Zach Galifianakis recommended me to him.
Yes,
because I toured with Zach, and he sort of I did Invite Them Up a month after I got done. That was the hot show. Doing that show was like doing a TV credit. And he sort of became my benefactor.
Right.
He would pay me to open for him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then I met you through him,
Yes.
and you gave me my first comedy job, which is Michael and Michael Have Issues, which is a very, very funny show on Comedy Central.
And a lot of fun. And then I also met you that night at Sweet, the TJ night.
Okay, we don't need to talk about that.
But now, where in the chronology did that happen? Did we know each other yet? No, not really, right?
I don't think we.
You might even have been still in Chicago, or you might have just gotten here when that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I was only in New York slightly over 2 years. But Michael and Michael Have Issues was somebody sent me. I was sort of looking for writing jobs and stuff, and I heard that you guys had a show, and I was a big fan of yours and Michael Ian Black's, and they sent me this pilot for your show.
Yeah,
and it was really, really funny.
Yeah.
It's you guys have this fight on the lawn where you both take your shirts off.
Yeah.
But then
we don't really fight.
You don't really fight.
We're just posturing.
Yeah.
A lot of posturing.
It's just posturing. And you're trying to win over the affections of this intern.
Right.
Not the affections, but sort of
we're competing we both want him to be impressed because he's writing an article. I think he's writing an article for his school newspaper, and we both want to be the interview subject. Yeah.
But we wrote on that show, when I started writing for that show, I was so excited. I was this is going to be my job
forever.
Yeah.
And then
I'm going to be
And then we did 7 episodes, and then it got canceled.
We started writing season 2. Remember that?
Yeah.
We wrote 5
really
weeks.
Funny.
We got canceled during the writing process somehow.
I know.
It was a real bummer.
That was actually for me a very big moment in my really making a decision to not act anymore. That was sort of my last big, like, I think I want to be in front of the screen moment. And I really decided after that experience that it was both not fulfilling to me personally, creatively, and it also was not like clicking. Like I was not connecting with an audience as an on-screen person, and that I didn't really want to do it anymore. And if you look at my IMDb credits, you'll see that there's a sort of a drop-off happening.
You have drifted behind the camera.
I've drifted behind the camera.
As you say. But then you were in Wet Hot American Summer.
I was in Wet Hot American Summer, but I had to be in Wet Hot American Summer.
So you would rather not be in, like if someone was like, oh, here's a big movie and want you to play this part in it, you would say no.
I'd be very ambivalent about it. That's the honest to God truth.
What was it about it?
I would do, like, if you offer me something, like I would do it, like I would do it for money. Like if you said,
you love money.
I love money. I love money. Sure, I love money.
One of your favorite things is money.
I don't have a lot of it, but I love it.
A lot of people know about this.
Yeah. I'm a big greedy monster. No, I would love to get paid a lot of money to do something, like act in something.
Because you love money.
But I would be very ambivalent and have been very ambivalent about what I would think, in a good way, most actors would kill for, let's say, an audition for a Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah.
Or to be in a Aaron Sorkin show.
Yeah.
And I've had the opportunity to have like good auditions for these things where I'm like, the producers are going to see you or the director or something. And I'm completely ambivalent. Like, I don't want to do that.
And why do you think that is? And what is it about Michael and Michael that showed you that you didn't want to do that?
It failed. It failed.
So it wasn't that the doing of the acting.
Well, the doing of it was, it was like, I like working with Mike. I love Mike and I have a funny rapport and I like the thing that we do. But like, and I'd be interested to ask you this, like it doesn't, as you're a writer and a performer, I never think about performance ever. I never think about, how am I going to do this scene? Or God, I never see a movie and think, God, I wish I could play that part. Or I never see a play and I go, God, I wish I could do that thing. I think only about the writing of it and the producing of it, the directing and
wow.
I've never seen a performance when I was younger, I did. When I used to want to do improv or SNL, like, and I saw comedians and stuff. But as I've gotten older, I have no connection to it other than just that I really admire a good actor. So I'll ask you that question. Do you think about acting? Like, do you think about wanting to play a great role and like the project that we're working on now? Like, do you get up in the middle of the night thinking, how am I going to do that scene or how am I going to do all this stuff?
I will answer in two ways. We are opposite. One, every movie I watch, I'm like, well, I could
Interesting.
do that. I want to do that. And I find myself sometimes mimicking.
But see, that's good. That's good. That tells me that that's exactly what you should be thinking. If you are a performer, that is exactly what I think you should be thinking. And
where I learned I wanted to do acting was on Michael and Michael Have Issues, because I just thought I wanted to be a writer, and me doing stand-up was just the quickest way of getting my writing out there. I never thought of myself as a performer. I'd always felt like I learned to perform enough just to get the writing out there.
Yeah.
So I was writing for the show, and you guys really wanted me and Jesse Klein, who was the other writer on the show, to act on the show. You guys really wanted that.
Yes.
And I had to audition 4 times for Comedy Central to play a character named Kumail, written by us.
By you, that was our writer on the show. Yes.
I would go down I remember we had a production office, I would go to the different floor.
And now you have your own show on Comedy Central. And they were like, who's this guy Kumail? Like, we're totally, like, it's embarrassing how much we had to like try to like talk them into casting.
I was so impressed at how hard you pushed to have me on that show.
Yeah.
I auditioned 4 times. I would go down to the floor and I would see like young brown dudes reading sides written by me that had named Kumail on them. That would happen all the time.
I know.
And the other thing that happened, I'll mention this, is so both me and Jesse had to audition to play ourselves.
Yeah.
And it was a process. I think it was harder for me than it was for her. But what you guys then did, you and Mike Black did this, where you emailed her and said, hey, you got it, but Kumail didn't, and he doesn't know. And you emailed me and said, you got it, but she didn't.
And she doesn't know.
And we had this she doesn't know.
And you shared an office where where your desks were facing each other.
We were facing each other, where it was like basically they said, you guys said, she knows she didn't get it. She doesn't know you got it. And told her the opposite, like, oh, he knows he doesn't have it, but he doesn't know that you have it. So we had to sort of be this thing of like, hey, sorry. And she's like, yeah, it sucks.
Created the weirdest dynamics. And every 20 minutes, one of you would come into our office and be like, this is excruciating. I don't know what to do. Like, can you guys tell her? And be like, we're just not ready to tell. We're not ready to tell. And then you thought, when you finally figured it out, you thought it was really funny. And I don't know if Jesse to this day has forgiven us for it.
I felt a tremendous amount of relief, and I was just so happy that it wasn't true, and she was so livid at you guys.
Yeah.
Which she's right.
Yeah. It was a terrible, horrible prank.
It's a terrible, horrible prank. But when I watch movies, I always think of that, and I do work on every single scene of every single
As I know you do.
No matter how small the part is, like, even if it's like 3 scenes, I like work on it, and I really, really love it. And doing it on Michael and Michael, I realized, I used to think acting was just, I thought writing was the creative part, and then acting was just you just doing somebody else's creative part, but I realized that acting is a very creative thing.
Oh yeah, and it's a craft.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, I think what happened on Michael and Michael Have Issues was I was like, I think I'd rather write it and direct it and let someone who loves this performing part more than me do that part.
Yeah.
Because I love the writing and the directing and the producing. I love it. I could do it all day long.
Yeah.
It's which I think you, having worked with me now for 5 months, you see I've endless amounts of energy for it. But when it comes down to like getting in front of the camera, I'm ambivalent at best.
Yeah. I will say one thing that I learned writing for Michael Have Issues was, well, 2 things. One, that was the first time I wrote for a voice other than myself. And I found that to be quite challenging in the beginning. And I felt like I got better at it, or at least I became aware of that's what I needed to do. Because I would write jokes that would not make it in. And I realized it's like, oh, it's because I'm not writing in the Michael's voices. I'm writing in my voice, and I can't do that.
But you were very good. You did a very good job.
The other thing I learned, thank you. The other thing I learned was, and I can specifically go back to the specific moment when I realized this, and it's still a lesson that's like so important, is that you can fix anything.
Yeah.
I would always think, like with stand-up, it's like if a bit isn't working, you lose it.
Yeah.
But we were writing an episode, and we ran into a story problem.
Yeah.
And my instinct, or what I thought,
it's a dead end.
I was like, all right, let's start over. And you guys like talked and figured out how to fix it. And that was like a major epiphany for me. And it's sort of, while we're working on our movie together right now, that's something that we do every day. Okay, so now let's talk about Hello, My Name is Doris.
Right.
So to people who don't know you, it was a very different thing that you did, where a lot of your other stuff, like Stella, Wet Hot American Summer, has sort of a heightened reality to it, whereas Michael Have Issues, whereas Hello, My Name is Doris has a very grounded quality to it.
Yeah.
And to people who don't know you, that feels like a departure.
Yeah.
But knowing you, to me, it was not a departure because I know how much you love rom-coms and those kinds of movies.
Yeah.
So was that like something that you always wanted to do? Like, do you think that there's 2 completely different kinds of things you want to do? One stuff that's more, not spoofy, but more heightened, and then one that's more grounded? Or do you see them as the same thing?
I mean, even Wet Hot has like some sweetness, some grounded sweetness to it. I just think over the years I've like wanted to like go further and further towards that and make it less of an exception to it. So in Wet Hot there's like some sweet moments, but most of it isn't that. And I thought I would like to start to make it so that there's not sweet moments, but there's more ironic quote meta humor and more like. But I mean, even Doris, I think, is an heightened universe. That is a comedic world that's not our own. It's not a totally recognizable world they live in.
Right, but I would say maybe I'm misrepresenting it, Wet Hot American Summer is more about creating situations where you can be funny, and that's the most important thing. There's some sweetness, like your character falling in love with Lake Bell, and that's all very funny, but that's also kind of heartbreaking.
And it's based in some tragic emotions and stuff like that.
Right, but like sort of it feels like comedy is king in those things. Whereas with Doris, it's a very finely tuned thing, but it feels like emotions are king.
I totally wanted that. I totally wanted to. 100% wanted to get out of just doing the big comedy stuff.
Yeah.
I very much specifically wanted to try to write a script that could be both funny but also really dramatic in a way that nothing I'd ever done before had been. And so that was in very much like the game plan with Doris, and it took forever. It took years to write that script, and you know, but like I have felt myself wanting for a long time to like go there and just trying to figure out like how the way in, like how do I, you know, as I don't know if you've had this, but you know, you get kind of stuck in a place of like, well, this is what you do. You're the guy that does Wet Hot and Stella, and that's who you are comedically or whatever, and so you kind of get stuck in that, and you're trying to figure out like, well, how can I get out but stay in the same? You know what I mean? Do you know
no, I exactly know what you mean, and that's kind of why, like, even with stand-up, when I first started doing stand-up, it was very like observational stuff, and then sort of later it became more stories and stuff, because it sort of gets boring to sort of do the same thing when you know what your strengths are, and I do. It's going to sound very cheesy, but I like putting myself in situations where I feel uncomfortable. And that's part of what I enjoy about acting, is that I feel like with stand-up, I know I can go up in front of a room most times and like do really well, and I have that confidence. And with acting, I don't have that. Like I find it very, very challenging.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I like about it.
Well, it was interesting doing Michael, I Have Issues, which felt like one of your first acting jobs.
That was my first acting
and
job.
You were very much like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, where am I supposed to look? Where's the camera? I mean, you literally were that guy that like didn't know how to act.
No, not at all.
But you were very funny. And then you were in Doris. You're in Hello, My Name is Doris. And you like created, you know, there was a role that was written there, but you kind of created a character who had much more complexity and depth than what we had written. And it was amazing to see all those years later you like being an actor in that movie, and like, you know, like you're, you know, you have some of my favorite scenes in that movie, and now working with you again now, like I do see like you've really evolved as an actor now.
Oh, thank you. How did Doris come together? Like, what was the genesis of the idea, and how did you guys write it? And
well, you know, Laura Taruso made a short film when she was at NYU Graduate Film School. I was teaching there, and she had made a short film called Doris and the Intern, which is a comedy, very funny comedy short about a kind of kooky old lady who has a romantic infatuation with a 19-year-old intern. And that was a lot of just sort of fantasy and screwball. It didn't go into the serious stuff at all. And there was just something about the character as a protagonist that I just thought I could immediately felt like there's a whole thing here. There's like a whole comic main character that I've not seen before, but that like feels like I have. And so we just started the process of like building a story around her. And some of the influences for me were like being the Chauncey Gardner character and being there.
Yeah.
I really like characters who are sort of accidentally funny, or like, you know, who sort of like don't understand necessarily how other people are seeing them or perceiving them. And so that's kind of a lot of it was for Doris, because she's so isolated and troubled in many ways. She doesn't understand how she's coming across.
Right.
And that gives her license to say things and do things that most people in real life don't do. And that's what you want with a comic protagonist, is you want someone who's like doing stuff that normal people aren't doing.
Right.
And that's where the comedy, for me anyway, the comedy comes out of like misbehaving.
Yeah. And there are sort of, I mean, this is probably simplistic, but like two kinds of comic protagonists. One, like Doris, who are funny, but they're not trying to be funny. And then there's, you know, the commenter like Bill Murray or something, who's like funny.
The wise ass.
The wise guy, yeah. And there's a lot of different types, but and that's something that we've talked a lot about in this movie we're working on together. Like, is this a person who's funny because they want to be funny, or are they funny because of the other reasons that you were talking about?
If you're asking me, which you're not, but I think he's very funny.
Sure.
And in a way, that's his. It's both the best thing about him, but it is also an Achilles heel for him.
Right.
is that he doesn't know how to not be funny.
Yeah, his way of dealing with situations is to be funny and to comment on them rather to actually experience them.
Right, which is a very true thing for comedians. Like,
yes.
like you know, we are never not, well, except for earlier today.
Well, it's interesting.
But by and large, we never stop busting on each other. We never stop. We're always in that place of comedy, but except for earlier today.
Except for earlier today. Well, what's interesting is, and I was thinking about this, a lot of comedians I know don't want confrontation, and you are not like that. You are totally okay with confrontation. You are okay speaking your mind and just putting it all on the table. Whereas, and I think that's really good, but it is not a quality that is shared by many people.
No, and it's not that I like it. I don't like it. It's not that I enjoy that, but
No.
there is like I do have a little bit of like I can't bullshit meter. I just can't.
And today's, just so people know, that today wasn't me versus you. Today was you versus with somebody else.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even me versus somebody else.
No, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like, but we've certainly had arguments in that room that I think, like Emily, who's my wife and is working with us, and her and I are the writers of the movie. Emily feels really awkward when you and I argue because it does get heated.
Yeah.
I don't think it gets personal, but it gets heated.
Yeah.
And I'm totally okay with that. Like when that's done, I understand that it's because we're all coming from the same place. We want to make the best movie we can.
Yeah.
But I think that it makes her really awkward. Feel really, really awkward.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's been interesting about this process is, so in this room, basically,
we should just say we're making a movie. We're going to shoot a movie this spring. It's tentative. Should we not even say what it's called?
Well, it's tentatively called The Big Sick.
You and Emily wrote the script, and you're going to be in the film, and I'm directing the movie.
Yeah, and Judd Apatow's producing the film. Barry Mendel. And we're going to shoot in New York, hopefully very, 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 very soon. What's been interesting is it's based on a very personal story to something that happened to me and Emily. But so the first version of the script were very, very true to the facts of the situation. And as we've, in rewriting it and getting notes from you guys, and we've all like been in a room working on this together for 5 months, realizing that sometimes the truth of the situation means you have to heighten the situation.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is going to sound gross, but it's like poetically and emotionally true, even if it's not like factually true.
Right.
And I find sometimes for me, I resist changing some things, and I realize that a day later where it's like, okay, why did I resist that? Oh, sometimes it's because it's just not how I saw things happening.
Yeah.
But what's interesting has been, I don't know if you've noticed this, everybody's notes, so it's me, you, Barry, and Emily in a room, and we get notes from Judd. You see in people's notes what their like things are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You sort of start to see like, oh, okay, this kind of person gives this kind of note because this is the kind of, it's sort of insight into their character and personality a little bit. Yeah. It's been an interesting process.
It has.
So you like this part of the process?
I love it. It's my favorite. I mean, it's all. I'm very much of a journey is the reward person. Like this is the part. This is the process. This is everything.
It's interesting because I've noticed this about how you and I approach this. Where like this was yesterday. So we did a table read and it went really well, but we realized what areas we needed to work on. And yesterday we figured out a certain part, which was, I would say, let's say it's step 1 of 10 steps that we have to take to get this to exactly where we want it to be. And you were like, when we did that first step and it all felt really good to us, you were in the place of like, oh, this is great. This is very exciting. We figured something out. There's more to figure out, but we figured it out. Where I only think about what's still left to do. Like in a way, it's like it's a pretty negative way of thinking.
Interesting.
I don't think about like, we made this progress, this is great. I'm like, okay, we did this, but there's like so much more to do. So I look at the empty part of the glass, whereas you look at the full part.
Well, I just have this like blind faith that we'll get there.
Yeah, you have that. I don't have that.
Yeah.
You truly have that where you're like, we find a problem and you're like, but we'll fix it.
Yeah. which drives people crazy, by the way.
Well, no, but that's really good.
I know, but I've worked with other people who like that attitude, which is totally my attitude. Like, don't worry, we'll fix it. It's going to work out. I don't know how, but it's going to drive some people crazy because it's like, well, but how? How's it going to work out? How's it going to work? And it's like, I just trust me, it will.
But it's not even you saying it. You truly believe it.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
If we stay the course.
I used to, when I first did stand-up, I would sort of wait for like inspiration to strike me, and I wouldn't sit down and write. I would just wait for like something to hit, and then I would do it. And if it worked, great. If it didn't work, it didn't work. Fuck it, it's gone. Realizing that making good stuff takes a lot of work, and it's not a glamorous process, and it's very rare that you have those like lightning bolts of magical inspiration. It really is like sitting down and talking. And there's like working with you, I've realized to scripts, there's like a math to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also an aesthetic to it.
Yes.
There's an aesthetic to the process. Like I said, I mean, like this part is the creative part. We're cooking. We're in the kitchen cooking. We're trying things out. We're tasting our food. We're doing all these different things right now. And we'll like serve the meal later. But like this part is not a drag. And if you think of this part as a drag, not you.
Yeah.
But if one thinks of this part of the process as a drag, you're fucked.
So Doris is out, and I think I love that movie. I haven't seen anything like it.
I heard of this. There's this website. I've never even heard of it until just recently.
What is it?
It's called like Spoiled Tomatoes or something like that.
Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, Rotten Tomatoes.
I've heard of it.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
So I'd never heard of it before, but apparently.
Is it?
We're certified fresh.
Certified fresh.
Which I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
But apparently
But if you had to take a guess, you'd mean like overwhelmingly positive reviews? Is that
seems good to me.
How you would categorize it? You actually are going to get a little trophy for it.
That's what I hear. I hear you get a certificate for being certified fresh.
How does it feel? Like right now, working on our movie, very different part of the process. With Doris, you worked on it for years. You did all the cooking and everything. You served the meal. Now it's coming out. It's getting great reviews.
Yeah.
How does it feel? Is this a satisfying part of the thing for you to see?
It's bittersweet. It's very bittersweet because I loved working with Sally Field in ways that I can't put into words. And to see it now just out in the world and she's Sally Field again, it's sort of like...
Oh, she's not Doris anymore?
No, it's more just like she's Sally Field. She's this huge movie star.
She's not this person that you hang out with and work with.
I mean, she is, but it's like now I see her on like talk shows like, and it's like, oh my God, this is like, it's Sally Field movie. I'm so proud of it. I'm so incredibly proud of it. But there's that surreal thing of like, being in bed at 11 o'clock watching her on Stephen Colbert talking about the movie.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I made that movie.
Yeah. Was there some part of you that's like when you work with Sally Field, you have to pretend like this is not Sally Field? Otherwise,
you answer that question. You tell me.
Well, for me, it was easy. I was only there for a few days. She was very lovely. But yeah, for me, that is a big part of the process is like, oh, this is just a normal person. Like for me, the biggest thing was I did an episode of The X-Files. And so I get to work with like David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson, who I've been a fan of, for years and years and years and years. And part of my preparation for doing it was not just looking at the part and working on that, which I did a lot of, probably too much. But it was also like trying to convince myself that
not being a crazy fanboy
that these are just two normal, regular people.
I mean, as soon as she agreed to do the movie, I very much realized like my main job now is to support her in her quest to give a great performance.
Yeah.
It was to acknowledge what her intentions were as an actor, which were to like give 100,000% of herself to this performance, and then to like really quickly learn how to be a director that could provide that for her.
Yeah.
And so and then we were very close, but like I'm always in awe of her even now. I mean, I still am like never not aware of like who she is and what she means to this industry and the work that she's done, her career.
Are there parts when you're shooting where like, it's like we got to get 7 pages today and it's all busy and lunch is in a half hour. We got to get this shot, and directing is a very, very stressful thing. Were there moments when you would see her perform and be like, fuck, that's Sally Field?
All the time. Every day. Every time we worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there would also be times where it'd be like, because you know how it's very hard to do costume changes because every time you do a costume change, you
get
remiked and all this stuff. You have to do the makeup again. It's like a costume change is a very laborious, uncomfortable thing.
You really hate all the business of acting.
Oh, I hate it. But my point is that her character sometimes had to do 5 costume changes in one day.
Yeah.
And that meant redoing her hair, redoing her makeup, taking off all the costume, putting on a brand new costume, then remiking, redoing all that stuff. And
the costumes are a big part of the character.
Right. But I'm saying as Sally Field, the person is like, you're gonna make me do another costume change? Like can't we not do this? Those were the hard parts where it'd have to be like, I'm gonna accept that I'm gonna piss her off right now. Like I have to sometimes piss her off knowing that she's gonna be annoyed at me but that she'll get over it.
Yeah.
And that's part of it too. It's like, you sometimes have to be the bad guy and like know that the actor will get over it.
I mean, directing is such a difficult job because it's not just creative. That's a huge part of it.
Yes,
but it's
very
also
administrative.
Like having to,
it's diplomatic.
Ship.
Yes, which I like.
Keep all these people happy. It's like you're in charge of.
But I like that. I like what's going on with the actors. I like what's going on with the costumes, and I like all the different pieces. I'm interested in every piece of it.
Great. Well, so Doris is out in theaters.
All
Hello,
over
my
the
name
country.
is Doris.
Hello, it's all over the country now. Anywhere where there's a movie theater, this movie is playing.
Go see it. It's Sally Field is unbelievable. And Max Greenfield is fantastic
Phenomenal.
in it too.
Tyne Daly.
Tyne Daly is unbelievable in it.
Yes.
I mean, it's a really, really like. It's a lovely movie, and I was very excited to be a small part of it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Kumail. Thank you so much. See you now. I'll see you in 5 minutes.
I'll see you in 5 minutes.
This is Nick Dawson from Talkhouse Film, and you've been listening to Michael Showalter and Kumail Nanjiani on the Talkhouse Film podcast. This episode was recorded by Susan Vallet and edited by Elliot Einhorn. For more filmmakers talking film and TV, visit thetalkhouse.com/film. Subscribe to Talkhouse Film and Talkhouse Music podcasts on iTunes, where you can find all our previous episodes. And while you're there, please rate and review if you can.